Okay, Lindsay, tell us all about Forev. Over to you.
Okay, yeah, it's a pleasure. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lindsay Wallace, and I'd like to introduce you to Forev, a business I founded in 2018. We are looking to raise 1.6 million in equity investment to fund and accelerate our business expansion. So what does this business do? We're developing and building out an EV charging network, which we'll own, operate, and maintain for the benefit of our customers and shareholders. The Forev network will comprise of between 900 and 1,800 charge points in Scotland, located on over 300 sites. I think, Robert, you can skip that slide now. Yeah. The actual number of charge points will depend on the level of funding we raise and how we choose to finance the hardware as the business grows. Next slide, please. I'm very proud to point out that our very first site is now online at Springfield Quay in Glasgow Entertainment and Retail Park, and we're now generating revenues. It's a great location. It's open 24/7 with excellent all-round facilities. Our second installation is planned later this month for Glenmorangie. We are also in the process of developing plans for a number of other major shopping centres and retail parks throughout Scotland, all of which we feel will become heavily utilised sites in the future. So site economics. We've really refined, next slide please. We've refined our business model during the development and construction of our Springfield Quay site. And we currently fund our sites using a combination of grants and asset finance. And in this case, we managed to fund 100% of all the associated costs. In addition, we pay a small annual rent to the site owner, which in this case runs for 8 years with various term extensions and technology refresh options included within our lease. Lastly, we make a payment to our technology partner, Swarco eVolt, which covers 24/7 site monitoring and a full service and maintenance provision. Next slide, please. So how big is the market? Well, the Scottish Government aimed to phase out the need for petrol and diesel vehicles by 2032 through promoting the use of ultra-low emission vehicles. Several incentives have been introduced, and as a result, the number of EVs in Scotland is growing exponentially and is expected to exceed 1 million in 2030. If the ratio of EVs to public charge points in Scotland increases to a similar value that exists in Norway now, we can expect there to be approximately 35,000 public charge points in Scotland by 2032. The sale of electric cars in Norway already exceeds the combined sales of petrol and diesel cars there, and we're confident similar growth will occur here. It's also important to stress that over 50% of the population in Scotland do not have access to home charging. That's more than double the rest of the UK. Therefore, we feel the need for a reliable public charging network will be greater than the rest of the UK. Next slide, please. We now have identified and fully qualified many of our pipeline of sites through our own contacts, but we've also developed key relationships with commercial property owners, managers, and a number of consultants. We have recently agreed an exclusivity contract with Graham & Sibbald, effectively their charge point partner and provider to their clients throughout Scotland. Scottish Golf have also signed a 3-year exclusivity contract, appointing Forev as a recommended partner of choice to supply electric vehicle charge points to many of their affiliated golf clubs and courses. We've identified a priority list of some 20 clubs where we will deploy charge points into as soon as the COVID-19 situation improves. Progress today, next slide please. We've made significant progress in developing and validating our business model by funding development and construction costs through grants and asset finance. We've introduced a number of checklists and processes to evaluate and prioritise potential sites, ensuring these are in the optimal locations with the correct combination of fast and rapid chargers deployed. We have identified a network of supply chain partners to ensure our network is built out in a safe and efficient way, on time, within budget, whilst keeping a tight control on our overhead costs. Next slide, please. Board of directors, we have a really excellent, well-balanced team of executive and non-executive directors. We've got vast experience and knowledge in renewables, grid connections, finance, sales and marketing, and the automotive sectors. And I'd like to ask you, feel free to please review their profiles at your leisure. Next slide, please. Non-executive directors, very, very proud to have someone of Brian Gilda's stature. He's our chairman, and he owns Europe's largest independent Ford retailer, People's Ford. Brian tells us that he's never seen an opportunity like EVs in a lifetime's experience in the motor trade. Our independent non-executive director is Jim Wilson, who has a background in venture capital, renewables, and Jim believes that investing in EV infrastructure could actually be as rewarding for investors as what renewables were. Next slide, please. So what are we going to use the funds for? Well, our funding model works, and we've got a strong pipeline of excellent sites secured. And being able to fund sites using grants and asset finance, it is very cost effective, but the cash is paid retrospectively. And our limited funds mean we can only build out slowly, which is hugely frustrating for the whole team. We really need to be developing up to 10 sites seriously, and also shortening the construction and commissioning cycle by more than half. The A-round investment will allow us to do just that. This is a land grab, and we're confident we can deploy both fast and rapid chargers on the best sites before the anticipated demand materializes. Next slide, please. These figures show the planned deployment of charge points during each year following the close of the A-round funding. It's difficult to be precise on what the actual utilisation of public chargers will be in Scotland in the early years, but with over 50% of the population living in flats and other house types without any access to home charging, I think it's fair to assume that public charging usage will be higher than elsewhere in the UK. Next slide, please. Opportunity and exit. Well, we truly believe there is a great opportunity to grow a strong and agile business in Scotland. And as investors, you can be part of this opportunity. The COVID pandemic has shown that air quality improvements are achievable in a relatively short period of time. It's also highlighted the benefits of home working and the potential hazards of public transport. Transport Scotland have assured us that the recovery, when it comes, will be a green one. We believe many drivers will place a higher value on the independence and reduced cost of ownership that an EV brings. As the public charging market matures and starts to level out, then consolidation of networks is very likely. Forev will be well placed to provide investors an exit through a trade sale once the network is built out. Any additional information, I'd ask you to contact John Steedman at Greenbackers Investment Capital. I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to my presentation, and I'd now be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you very much indeed for that. Much appreciated. Any investor that wants to engage with a business that has clear business connections with Scotland's very famous whisky industry and very famous golf sector can certainly get in touch, and why wouldn't you? John, I can see lots of questions coming in from our investors online today, so over to you to put some of those to Lindsay.
Yeah, good to see you, Lindsay. Question from Maren Zacher. What really makes Forev different to others?
That's a good question, John. Okay, what we feel we've got different is the vast knowledge and experience of the Scottish grid, the network. Ewan Christie, our COO, was 30 years with SSE. We know the grid, the network, better than anyone. Before we actually go to a site to carry out a site discussion with the owner, we actually know where the capability in the grid, the cables run. So we can actually do the installation actually quicker and more cost effective than we feel any of the competition that there may be. So it's really the knowledge around renewables, the grid, the connection, which we think is our IPA.